Every business needs to be profitable so that it can survive long term. If your web design agency is struggling to turn a profit, or if you're just looking for ways to maximize your profitability, then in this video, I'm going to share 5 top tips to increase your profits. Hi, thanks for joining. If you're new to this channel, I'm Rich Dean, a web designer and developer, former web agency owner, and author of the book series Start, Grow and Sell Your Web Design Agency. My goal is to help anyone looking to start, grow and sell an agency to save time, earn more money, avoid the common mistakes and pitfalls, and build a thriving and valuable business. Okay, so before we get into the main topic, I just want to recap on why making a profit is so important. So I covered this in one of my videos from a few weeks back, but although business models can be complex, the fundamental way that all businesses operate is actually quite simple. Businesses make money through the things that they sell, and they spend money to make those things and to operate. And as long as a business makes more money than it spends, it can survive indefinitely. The difference between the two is the profit. So if you're a web design agency owner or a freelancer, making a profit is really important to you. It means your business can carry on for as long as you want it to, but also, as the business owner, how much you personally earn from your business will be very much tied to the profits. The more profit your business makes, the more you could potentially earn. So with all that in mind, let's move on to the main topic, starting with number 1, reducing your costs. Okay, so this is definitely one of the more obvious ones. So if you're already on top of this, then bear with me as we do go into some less obvious ones later on. Keeping your costs as low as possible is one of the best ways to increase your profitability. But to do this, you first need to know what your costs are. So if you're not already doing it, be sure to track the data of what your business spends on a monthly and yearly basis. Pretty much all agencies need to spend at least some money. Even if you just work on your own, you'll still need to pay yourself, but there can be plenty of other costs and they can soon mount up if you don't keep on top of them. Here's an illustration of how my agency's cost broke down when I ran it. So let's look at each one individually and then we'll look at ways that they could be reduced. So to start with, we'll look at the smaller ones like general ongoing costs. These are things like insurance premiums, fees for accountancy services, bank fees, general expenses, and basically the costs you can't really avoid. It's pretty simple here. You just need to do your best to get the lowest costs you can and avoid any costs that aren't absolutely necessary. Then you have rent. Now this one is also pretty easy. We chose to rent an office, but you don't have to. There are pros and cons to both, and it's quite a big topic, so I won't go into it here, but suffice it to say, if you're renting an office or you have a mortgage on one, but you don't really need it, i.e. you can work from home, then ditching the office can be one of the easiest ways to save money. Then you have software and subscription costs. Now, this is one area that can really creep up, and it's also not so easy to reduce. Software companies have become very good at getting us to commit to ongoing costs. It's pretty much how they all run their businesses nowadays. And so this is an area that can become really expensive. It's also really easy to sign up for subscriptions because you need a piece of software in the moment, only to still be paying for it months later when you no longer need it. So it's worth taking a good hard look at all your subscriptions. Some software you'll absolutely need to run your business, but you probably also have a few subscriptions that you could probably bin off to save money. Then you have staffing costs, and for most agencies, these are usually the biggest costs because we don't really have material costs. So how can you reduce that? Well, obviously, letting people go is never a nice thing to do, but you should always take a good hard look at whether your team structure is the best that it can be. If you have a big team, does it need to be so big? Does everyone earn their place and provide value, or do you have underperformers? Can any work be outsourced? Can any work be reduced or replaced by using AI? So this is something we'll look at shortly. Can you be more efficient and streamlined so that what you do takes less time and therefore requires less people? I know for many business owners, there's this drive to build big teams, almost as if having a big team is a mark of success. But big teams don't always equate to big profits, and if anything, they can actually hamper them. Then lastly, you have taxes. Now, obviously, you'll need to pay these, there's no getting around that, but the taxes that are associated with employment tend to be proportional. So if you can reduce your employment costs, then those taxes will reduce accordingly. This is also the case for pension contributions. Number 2, increase what you charge. Okay, so this is probably another one that is slightly obvious, but it stands to reason that along with reducing your costs, increasing what you charge and therefore what you earn is another clear-fire way to increase your profits. In fact, While reducing your costs is good, there will always be a lower limit. You'll always reach a point where you can't cut your costs anymore without it actually damaging the performance of your agency. But with earnings, there is no limit. And in fact, by doing both, what you're doing is you're widening that profit gap between what you spend and what you earn. So how do you do that? Well, that is the big question that pretty much all business owners ask, and it's not always easy, but there are ways. Can you increase your marketing activities to widen your reach? Can you improve your sales processes so that you increase your win rate? Can you improve your offering to make your agency more attractive to potential clients? Can you improve your client service offering so that you retain more clients and increase what they spend? Can you review your client base to reduce the smaller spending clients and find more big spenders? Can you find ways to deliver your projects more quickly and efficiently, again something we'll talk about shortly, while still charging the same amount? Remember, increasing what you earn isn't necessarily about being more expensive, it's about earning more relative to what you do. So for example, if you charge say £2,000 for a website, but it takes you 40 hours, if you can do that same website in 30 hours, you haven't had to increase the cost to your client, you've just got the work done quicker. This means that overall, you'll be able to do more work within the time that you have available and therefore earn more money. So just before we go any further, please don't forget to like and subscribe. This really helps us to grow the channel so that we can keep creating helpful content just like this. Okay, back to the main topic. Number 3, streamline your processes. So as I just mentioned, increasing your profits is not just about charging more and spending less, it's about doing less relative to what you charge. Now, that doesn't mean cutting corners or providing any less of a service to your clients. What it basically means is that you don't want to be wasting time. You should always try to be as efficient as possible, and this is where creating good systems and processes comes into play. The simplest way to think about this is whenever you do a task more than once, i.e. if you do a task repeatedly, you should always avoid doing that task from scratch every time or reinventing the wheel. As soon as you identify a repeatable task, you should find a way to package that up into a system or process that can then be easily repeated. And the benefits of this are twofold. First, it will help you be more efficient. Even if you work on your own, doing this will save you time and make your work more consistent. Second, it also means that you can transfer what you do to other people. If you employ people, or even if you outsource, your systems and processes will be a way to transfer what you know and do to them so that they can do it in exactly the same way. When you run your web design agency, there are lots of ways that you can do this. It could be as simple as just step-by-step checklists for people to follow, or if you're designing and building websites, there are probably lots of repeatable or reusable elements or components that can be packaged up and reused. This is basically how the web design industry has evolved with things like themes and plugins over the last 2 decades. Number 4, use AI to speed up your work. So if you watched my other video from a few weeks back on how I'm using AI in my business, you'll know that I've become a big fan of using AI in my own workflow. Even though I sold my web design agency a few years ago, I'm still working on a freelance basis, and I've been blown away by how much AI can now help me to develop websites. It's literally like having the world's most expert developer on hand to help me. It's not foolproof, and it has its limitations, but let me explain why it's so important. First and foremost, I'm a designer, but I'm also a developer too. I'm by no means an expert, and I have my limitations, but I'm pretty good. Before AI, when I ran my agency, if we needed to do something complex, I'd need to employ very experienced developers, and even then it could be very time consuming and expensive, and it could also be quite challenging just in terms of being able to do what we needed to do. But since I've been using AI, I've been able to deliver complex, highly technical solutions to my clients on my own, a lot quicker than I otherwise would have been able to, and to a much higher standard. Put simply, if you or your team aren't using AI in your agency yet, then you definitely should, as it's now one of the surest ways to not only improve the overall quality and delivery of what you do, but also increase your profits. Number 5, review your client base and target audience. If you're familiar with Pareto's law, then you should understand the concept that 80% of results come from 20% of the effort. Now, people often take this quite literally, but it's actually more of a broader concept and it can apply to many different areas, and that includes clients. When you run an agency for any length of time, you start to realize that not all clients are equal. With some clients, you have a really positive experience. You'll enjoy working with them, you do good work, you earn good money from them, they pay you promptly, and overall, it's a really good experience. But you also realize that with some clients, the complete opposite can be true. They can take up a lot of your time, they don't spend much money, but for what they do spend, they expect the world on a stick, and overall, working with them is not always easy. It's maybe not as clear cut as Pareto's 80-20 split, but you probably also have a few really great clients, but unfortunately, some that aren't so great. So it makes sense that if you can focus on increasing those good clients while reducing the not so good ones, this should translate into increased profits. This might mean you have to regularly review your client base and resign those clients where the time they take up doesn't equate to money in the bank. Or it could mean you choose to target bigger spending clients. The point is, as a business owner, you have a choice about which clients you want to work with, but those clients can have just as much of an effect on your bottom line as the work that you do or any other factor in your agency. Okay, so those are just 5 of the ways that you can increase your profits. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you enjoyed it, then please don't forget to like and subscribe. This will really help us to grow the channel so we can carry on making helpful content just like this. And if you want a deep dive into the topics we've just discussed, I talk about all this and a whole lot more in my book series, Start, Grow and Sell Your Web Design Agency, which you can buy from Amazon now, and I'll share a link in the description below. And if you'd like to watch more informative content, then why not check out this video here. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.